Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're talking about a massive shift in how cars are made. Seriously, it's a change so big it happens entirely in the digital world, long before a single piece of metal ever gets cut. This is what they're calling the zero prototypes revolution.
So let's just jump right in with an idea that honestly sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, but it's becoming a reality for engineers right now. What if you could design, build, and even test drive a brand new car all inside a simulation? And I mean a simulation so real it could trick the most experienced drivers out there. Well, that's the core idea that's turning the entire multi-trillion-dollar auto industry completely on its head.
To really get where we're headed, we have to take a quick look back at why the old way of doing things just isn't cutting it anymore. For more than 100 years, making a car has been this super physical, hands-on process. But that whole approach is hitting a massive wall.
Just look at this traditional timeline. It's a 5-year marathon. You start with these huge physical clay models. Then you have to build dozens of handmade, wildly expensive prototypes. Every single one of those has to be physically crash tested, driven for thousands of miles, and tweaked by hand. It's slow, it's rigid, and it costs an absolute fortune.
And here's the real kicker. That slow, physical process is completely out of sync with what's now the heart of the car, the software. A modern car is basically a powerful computer on wheels, running on millions of lines of code. You just can't build and rebuild physical prototypes at the lightning speed of software development. It's impossible. Which brings us right to this hugely important idea, the software-defined vehicle, or SDV. Think about it this way. It's a car that isn't really finished when it rolls off the assembly line. Its features, its performance, even the way it feels to drive can be updated and upgraded over its entire life, all through software updates. And to build a car like that, you need a totally new way of thinking. So the industry's answer is this new philosophy called zero prototypes. The idea is actually pretty simple, but it's totally revolutionary. You front-load the entire development process into the virtual world. You build it, test it, crash it, do everything digitally before you create anything in the physical world. And the numbers behind this shift are frankly staggering.
First up, a 40% reduction in physical prototypes. Just stop and think about that for a second. The amount of time, money, and material saved is just immense. That number alone is an absolute game changer for the industry.
Second, by shifting everything to the virtual realm, car makers can literally double their development speed. That means the cool new innovations they're dreaming up today can get from their screens to your driveway in half the time it used to take.
And this number shows you just how much faith they have in these new virtual tools. For some really critical, subjective things, like deciding on the specific sound a new electric car should make, up to 75% of those decisions are being signed off and finalized completely in the simulation. So, the big question is, how in the world is any of this even possible? Well, it all starts with pillar number 1, building driving simulators that are so incredibly realistic they can actually fool an engineer's senses. They call this engineering by sensation. And we're talking about a quantum leap here. Just forget the old, laggy simulators you might be imagining. The new full-spectrum simulators use things like direct drive motors for zero-latency motion. That means it responds instantly. And they're so quiet the machine itself doesn't interfere with the sound of the virtual car. It's all about total, complete sensory immersion.
Now, this level of realism is especially crucial for nailing what engineers call NVH. That's noise, vibration, and harshness. In an electric car, which is super quiet, you suddenly hear everything, like the tiny high-frequency whine of the electric motor or the sound of the tires on the road. Being able to perfect that sound and feel in a simulator is a massive, massive breakthrough.
Okay, so that was pillar 1. But a perfect simulator isn't enough on its own. You also need a perfect digital car to put inside of it. And that brings us to pillar number 2, taking the car out of the physical lab and putting it in the cloud.
The key concept here is called the digital twin. It's exactly what it sounds like, a living, breathing, perfect virtual copy of the car that exists entirely online. What this does is allow thousands of different virtual tests, everything from crash simulations to software checks, to be run all at the same time by teams of engineers all over the world. And this creates this incredibly powerful feedback system that they call the big loop. It works like this. First, real cars driving on real roads collect enormous amounts of data. Then, that data is used to train and improve the digital twin in the cloud, making it more and more accurate. And finally, software updates that have been perfected on that digital twin are deployed back out to the entire fleet of real cars. It's this amazing, continuous cycle of improvement.
And there's a huge economic reason for doing all of this. This approach of fighting problems early, what the industry calls shifting left, is so important. Just check out this chart. Fixing a software bug after a car has already been sold costs an incredible 640 times more than fixing it when it's still just lines of code on a computer. That's a pretty powerful incentive to get it right the first time in the virtual world.
Now, of course, a revolution this big isn't just happening in a bubble. It has absolutely ignited a fierce global race. Automakers, tech companies, everyone, everywhere is pushing the limits of what's possible with virtual engineering.
And what's really interesting is that different regions are kind of developing their own specialties. In Europe, companies like Mercedes-AMG are really focused on perfecting the methodology for things like virtual handling and NVH. Over in North America, companies like Ford are leveraging the sheer scale and power of the cloud for collaboration. And in Asia, you've got companies like NIO who are using simulation for pure speed, even setting track records with cars that were perfected in a computer.
Okay, so this is all really fascinating from an engineering standpoint. But let's bring it all back home. What does the zero prototypes revolution actually mean for you, the person behind the wheel? Why should you care if your next car was born in the cloud?
Well, the payoff for you is actually huge. It means safer cars, period. Millions of different crash scenarios can be tested virtually. It means fewer annoying glitches because the software gets debugged long before it ever gets into your car's dashboard. It means you get more advanced features like better driver assistance systems way faster than before. And ultimately, it just means better all-around performance because everything from battery efficiency to ride comfort can be optimized to an insane degree.
So all of this leaves us with one last, kind of philosophical question to think about. As our physical cars become totally inseparable from their digital twins, where does one even end and the other begin? If a car is perfected over millions of virtual miles before its first real tire ever touches pavement, does that make it the most real, most perfect version of that car? Or does it make it something else? It's definitely something to chew on the next time you get behind the wheel.